Hi, I'm Erik Voss, and Venom was definitely a more entertaining movie than the critics are giving it credit for. And I think the reason for this disparity are a few details that some of the more anal viewers are just getting too hung up on. One mystery that you might have overlooked in Venom involved the time jump early in the movie. Now, obviously, spoiler warning if you haven't seen Venom yet. As we meet the key players Eddie Brock, Anne, and Carlton Drake in San Francisco, halfway across the world, the escaped Riot symbiote hops from body to body, gradually making its way over to them. And then the film suddenly jumps ahead 6 months to show how Eddie's life has moved on after getting fired and dumped, but that time jump kind of leaves Riot up in the air. What was Riot doing for 6 months? Director Ruben Fleischer admitted that this was kind of a bump in logic. In other words, a plot hole. But here's the thing about plot holes, guys. Every movie has plot holes, and they're really only a problem if they're so distracting that they take you out of the moment. And while watching Venom, I honestly didn't think about this specific timeline issue until someone pointed out to me hours later. On the contrary, my overactive imagination sees a surprisingly fascinating hypothetical journey for Riot. That is, if you love stuffing plot holes with pointless research. It's fun. I had myself quite a yeah, you get it. So I ask you to detach yourself from skepticism and join me on this thought experiment. Where exactly was Riot? Okay, let's look at the map. In the movie's opening scene, an on-screen title establishes the space shuttle crash site as East Malaysia. A close look at the Life Foundation computer screens shows the northern coastline of the island of Borneo, which Malaysia shares with Indonesia and Brunei. Carlton Drake asks where the shuttle went down, and his assistant tells him 20 kilometers west of Cebu. Now, Cebu is actually a town in East Malaysia. 20 kilometers west of it places the crash site at around these coordinates. Now, an EMT comes into contact with astronaut John Jameson. By the way, that's the son of Daily Bugle editor J. Jonah Jameson. One of the many Marvel Easter eggs that I go into in my full breakdown of the movie. Go watch it. In this ambulance, the Riot symbiote transfers from Jameson to the EMT, who's played by Michelle Lee, causing the ambulance to crash. The EMT and Riot from there take off on foot. Now, according to the map, the closest major road is here, and I assume it was headed to the nearest city of Bintulu. I think that's a general area of the market that the EMT stumbles upon. It would have been about a 5.5-hour walk. So here the Riot symbiote attacks a bunch of townspeople, and it hops over to a new host body, that of a middle-aged woman played by Vicky Ng. This is the last we see of Riot and this woman until 6 months later in the Hong Kong airport. Now, what was this woman doing for 6 months? Judging from Drake's other test subjects, these symbiotes can't last that long in a human host body. They start to eat the human's organs. Only by achieving symbiosis and eating other living creatures can they survive the way Venom did with Eddie Brock. So I think we can assume that Riot bonded with Vicky Ng in the same way. Something about this older Malaysian woman must have just checked the box for this alien military commando. Maybe she had a fighting spirit. Maybe she takes no prisoners at Mahjong. The director actually offered this explanation. I like to think that old lady was going around murdering all throughout Malaysia, and she was just having a good time shooting shards through different people. I mean, who's to know? That's a bit more than Mahjong. So 6 months is a long time for a killing spree around Malaysia, but I guess a Riot's gotta eat, right? The Venom comics explain that the reason the symbiotes eat human heads is that they need the chemical phenolphthaleamine, which is found in the human brain. It's also found in chocolate, but you know, going after a brain just kind of gives you a chase. Now, I'm not sure how frequent of a phenolphthaleamine fix these symbiotes need, but let's assume it's 1 brain per day. We're trying to fill up 6 months of time here, so that would be about 180 bodies. You think if an older woman was doing that around Malaysia, someone would have noticed. Besides, based on the way that EMT looked at the Life Foundation patch, Riot was on a mission. It didn't want to sit around dormant in this older Malaysian woman and goof around for a while. It needed to get to San Francisco ASAP. Riot is traveling for work, not pleasure. So what if it just took a really long time for Riot to get there? Is it possible to travel that inefficiently? After spending way too long looking at Southeast Asian travel routes? Yes, kinda. Let's go back to look at when Riot fused with Vicky Ng, perhaps in the city of Bintulu. From there, the fastest way to get to Hong Kong would be a direct flight. But a flight wouldn't be that simple. You need a passport, for one, and while direct flights are relatively cheap from US standards, the median annual income of Bintulu is just a little over 10,000 US dollars per year. And this woman appeared to be a street vendor in an area where knife-wielding gangs are patrolling. So I just doubt that she travels a lot or has much disposable income. I guess you could argue that maybe part of the 6 months could have been Riot robbing Malaysian convenience stores, or just working an honest day job selling eels, gradually building up funds to afford a plane ticket, and then of course take a passport photo without the eyes milking over. Or maybe part of the 6 months could have been Riot having some trouble with air travel. Malaysian Airlines doesn't exactly have the best track record. No, I'm not suggesting that Riot caused the tragic flight disasters with Malaysian Airlines. Flight 370 was actually headed from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, different flight route. Anyway, the second fastest way to get to Hong Kong would be, of course, to swim. Remember, Borneo is an island. Luckily, apparently symbiotes can swim like friggin' torpedoes. Remember, Venom, while escaping the Life Foundation in San Francisco, swam across the bay, a distance of 4.5 miles, judging by the length of the Oakland Bay Bridge. He swam crazy fast. But how fast exactly? How fast can anything swim? Well, the fastest swimming animal on Earth is, no, not Michael Phelps, shut up, the Indo-Pacific sailfish, which can swim up to 68 miles per hour. And since Venom is a super strong extraterrestrial, let's just round up and put his top swimming speed at 70 miles per hour. If Riot can swim that fast, it could swim from Bintulu to Hong Kong, a distance of 1,169 nautical miles, about 17 hours if it swam at top speed the whole time without braking. But that might be too long a distance. So suppose Riot decided to swim west from Bintulu, a distance of 563 nautical miles to Singapore, and work its way up to Hong Kong through the mainland. That swim would take about 8.5 hours, top speed without brakes. But a long swim doesn't seem that practical for Riot, does it? It would take so much energy. Riot would have to stop and hunt for food. It could get lost. You gotta train for that kind of thing. So let's assume Riot just took a boat to Singapore. Most cargo ships travel around 24 knots, which is about 28 miles per hour. At that speed, it would take about a day to get there. From Singapore, Riot could set out on foot and walk the long walk to Hong Kong, about 2,500 miles. Now, walking an average speed of 3 miles per hour, it would take around 35 days. So, I think it is fair to assume it could have taken Riot at least 3 months, from figuring out boat schedules in Bintulu and sneaking aboard a cargo ship, and then wandering a planet that this thing is unfamiliar with, through difficult terrain across 5 countries, on foot. Of course, taking breaks to rest and feed and clean up at Mahjong, to eventually arrive at the Hong Kong airport. But of course, that still leaves 3 months. But we do not know how long Riot was at that airport. Remember the movie The Terminal? Tom Hanks lived in JFK for 9 months. And that movie was inspired by the real life story of an Iranian refugee who lived in Charles de Gaulle Airport for 18 years. I'm just saying 3 months is a totally reasonable amount of time for Vicky Ang, Riot, to live in the Hong Kong airport, returning luggage carts for quarters and then using that to buy Whoppers. And of course, occasionally eating people. People do go missing in China all the time, sadly. So there you go. 6 months of Riot in the body of Vicky Ang, zigzagging through Southeast Asia and sneakily eating people in the Hong Kong airport. Now sure, you could say it'd be way more practical for Riot to hop into a different body of someone more rich who could travel someplace more directly. But again, this is one special lady, folks. She must have been a serious badass for Riot to stick with her for 6 months. And we need to see her story. Forget Carnage or a Spider-Man crossover. Venom's sequel needs to be Vicky Ang and Riot, deadliest Mahjong players in Hong Kong International Terminal 1. Now look, you may just say this is all a plot hole and I'm wasting my time. But you know what else is a plot hole? The absurdity of a society capable of space travel not having a better way to transfer stolen battle plans than a droid and a princess. And that plot hole inspired a whole movie. Look, whatever your thoughts were on Rogue One, the Star Wars story, that final scramble to hand off those battle plans like a rugby ball was undeniably fun. These happy accidents are what we should live for. And if you think I sound crazy here, you should see what I do with the logic bumps of the Pixar Cars universe. Oh baby. Cars 911. That's all I'm gonna say. Comment down below with your theories and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at EA Voss for more rantings and ravings about things no one should think that hard about. Subscribe to New Rockstars for more entertaining over-analysis of the stuff that you love and nerdy defenses of plot holes. Plot holes aren't that bad. Oh god, a plot hole's forming underneath my feet. I'm falling. Remember